Thank you so much for the great conference. It's been wonderful to listen and to discuss. And now, as it's the last day, I think that all my points have been made already, so I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about the archives in Finland, mostly about private archives, but also all sorts of archives. Private archive is a very Nordic concept. It's extremely Nordic. It means those archives that are not state-owned or municipal. And most private archives are publicly funded, which is a very important thing for us. We are professionals of archive, and depending on the funding, most are also open to all. For example, the funding that Finnish Literature Society gets, one of the propositions of the funding is that we have to be open for everyone. At this exact moment, there is quite a lot of worry in the air. We are just now making the first private archive strategy in Finland, first ever. And at the same time, we are in the government negotiations. We had elections about a month ago, and we do not yet know what kind of program they will write for the next 4 years. What we know already is that it is the most right-wing government in Finland since 1930s, and what they have promised is severe austerity measures. And in this situation, we do not know what is going to happen to public funding, not just with the archives, but with everything. So we have to kind of think that what is our place in society and how we can communicate this to people so that they know why we exist and why we are important. During this conference, me and Jukka, we have been kind of negotiating or talking all the time, like, do you have any news from Finland? Do we have a government yet? So we are on the last days of making the program for the government, so fingers crossed. So on the background of these presentations, I talk about some of the ideas that I wrote about in this book, Arkistot ja kulttuuriperintö, Archives and Cultural Heritage, published 2021. It's the first edited volume about private archives in Finland. It's available online. It's in Finnish and Swedish, but Google Translate will help you. And what I'm going to talk about today is about about how we, as an archivist, how do we position ourselves in regard to society, to archival material, to ourselves, and to the users, those who come to archives. I find this concept of archival paradigms by Terry Cook very interesting because it gives you kind of very easy tools to kind of point out where you are at the moment. He argued that there is 4 different kind of functions for the archive that are connected to each time period. First, it was the evidence. The documents were the truth, and the archivists were the guardians and keepers. Then came the memory. There says asiantuntija. It's Finnish, unfortunately. It's expert. We were experts and appraisers. We kind of archivists selected, appraised the documents and created the national history. Now, at least in Finland, I believe that we are in the identity phase, where we have this kind of mediator standing point, and we are seeking for the society to find its identity through the archives and through the moments. Terry Cook says that in the near future, there is the community phase. What I have listened during these days here, I see that many of you are already in the community phase. We are not in Finland yet, but this is something that I would like to reach and I would like to see come true. For example, it's quite much written into the whole archival profession. For example, look, here are the Code of Ethics by ICA and ICOM, so archives and museums. And as you can see, both of them are very old. Even the museum Code of Ethics is about as old as the students around here at the university. So they are truly old. But when you look at them, it looks that for the archives, it's always the archivists that has to do something. But with the museums, it's the museum that is something. So the Code of Ethics is very different. The whole kind of idea that we have of our profession, it's what an archivist has to do compared with why museums exist. And this is very essential. For example, when you look at the strategies of Finnish archives and museums, they tell that museums enable people to be involved in their cultural heritage. And they are a platform for the history, for the heritage. And they think about what can be achieved with cultural heritage. Archives, both private and state, we are the authority in records management. We are the authority. We are research infrastructure. This has been a very fashionable word or phrase in Finland for the last 10 years, research infrastructure. And the focus is on ourselves. And in some of those strategies, it even seems that the archives do not need anyone outside their walls, that they are happy because they are so professional and they know how they do it. They do not think about anything that is outside. And here, when you think about how the museums encourage people to own their own cultural heritage, there comes, and when you compare it with the ideology that is in the archives, there is all sorts of problems. We are always in a position of power. It's hierarchical all the time, and we are gatekeepers. And cultural appropriation, also that. This has been discussed within the archival profession at least 1990s, so there is nothing new when we talk about that, how we hold the power. It's in acquisition, appraisal, in retention, in description. It's all the time there, and we should be made aware of it. Of course, we have been talking about this, but how does it affect when we look outside the archival walls? Cultural heritage material, it can be, the ownership of that can be defined in very different ways, at least with these three different ways. First of all, the archival material as a movable property. For example, with our archive, we always take the material in as a donation, and we make a contract of it. So it becomes our property. It becomes the property of ASKOAS, and most of the private archives do the same. Then, of course, it's a copyrighted work. Most of the archival material has copyrights. And our decision is not to ask the copyrights to be given to us. So the copyrights remain wherever they have been originally. But then also, this is not all, because material is also mediator of cultural heritage. To whom does that belong? Who owns it? For example, here's brochures of two special projects that we have had in recent years. First, there is Ingria and Ingrians. Ingrians are Finnic-speaking people who have originally lived around St. Petersburg. So you can imagine the troubles they had after the Russian Revolution and during the Second World War. So already in 1920s, 1930s, and then during the war, they came to Finland. After the Second World War, Finns returned them to the Soviet Union. And also after the collapse of Soviet Union, a lot of them came to Finland again. So this was a project where we gathered materials, did huge amount of interviews. The other one is about the Great Purge or the Stalinist regime and the Finns that were affected in that. So, of course, when we have received material, made interviews as a material objects, they are ours. They belong to ASCOAS. But as a cultural heritage, of course, they belong to the people where they originate. We have also, for example, at the moment going on a project about Ukrainians, about the refugees that have come to Finland. That's an Ukrainian heritage. We have an extensive collection of Sami material, so the indigenous people of the north, of Roma people. So we have to remember that they are not, that to whom that cultural heritage belongs. It doesn't change the ownership when it becomes us as a material. And then when we think about archives as a research infrastructure, then we find ourselves as gatekeepers. So about 60% of our users are also academic researchers, like we saw in another presentation yesterday. So academic research is very important for us, but it's only that 60%. There is 40% of something else. And if we think that we are here only for the academic research, it happens that first there is the society where the material comes and we are the gatekeepers. We choose what to take in. And then when we describe them, then there is another gate before the researcher gets it. And then especially if the research is published in English journal, in an English-speaking journal that is not open access, how does it get back to the society? There is so many gates on this way. And this is how, when the newspapers write about archives, they always say that found hidden in the archive. It's the gates that there are. So how I would like to see this work is that we are active participants in the society, and this is actually what is happening with that 40% of our users, not just the 60% of the academic research, but everything else. And we should kind of make notice of it and celebrate it and promote it, how we can be a platform like the museums. When I say that we should be like the museums, the archivists in Finland, they said that, no, we can't. The material is too fragile. We cannot invite people in. Of course we can. We are not exactly like museums, but we can have the same ideology. We can think about the ways that we can come closer to those people whose cultural heritage we held. And this is the way that we can go from those not so nice words towards these being the instrument of self-understanding, inviting, being part in participation, being a cultural research, and enlightening our societal impact. Because this is the important thing that we have to now speak out. We have to speak out about the societal impact, because there is so many of us competing with the public funding that is going down at this moment. Thank you.